Well, hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the Huddle, the Review.com's weekly high school sports show. I'm Executive Editor Rob Toder of the Alliance Review, joined as always by Sports Editor Mike Brown. And Mike, it's hard to believe we're in week 4 of the high school football season already. The non-league portion of the season is over. We start league play on Friday night. And the Sebring Trojans, we got to talk about the Trojans. 3-0 off to their best start since you were a pup.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
They're really playing well. An impressive win over the Malvern Hornets last week.
It sure was. My goodness, and they've got a lot of guys stepping up. You know, it's the first time Sebring has started the season 3-0 since 1976, 38 years ago. Think about that one. And there's quite a buzz. It was a packed house in Sebring last Friday night. You know, our reporter Bob Steer came back from that game and said it was really exciting because Sebring on defense was just flying to the ball, and the crowd was really into it. It's really a special time for Sebring.
Now the Trojans go to Lowville this week, and not a tough place to play because it's a long drive to get there. You got to leave really early, and Lowville, even though they're 1-2 traditionally, are pretty competitive. So it's going to be a good test for Sebring.
It is, and you look at comparative scores. They both have played Wyndham. And Lowville beat Wyndham by more points than Sebring did. Now, again, you can't always take those, but and the game's at Lowville. So I think, Sebring needs to bring its A game again, and they have the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, the Trojans scored 35 points last week. Last week, 6 of our 12 area schools scored 35 or more points in a game, including St. Thomas, which outscored Marlington 49-35. They're undefeated, and they got a special big game Thursday night at Canton Central Catholic.
Right, and that's going to be a great one. 2 3-0 teams, and St. Tom. What more can you say about quarterback Anthony Meglin? He threw for like 329 yards and 6 touchdowns last week, Rob. I mean, that's phenomenal, and I see him continuing at that pace this year, too.
One thing that Anthony has, and obviously he has a lot of talent, but he also has a lot of confidence. I think it comes from the success he had last year as a quarterback, the success he had leading that basketball team to the state finals, and it's just manifesting itself again this year. And it just, that success feeds upon itself, and you can just see he goes out and he just knows he's gonna beat you.
That's right. There's that quiet confidence of a leader, and he's got that. And another key guy for them, Evan Vernier, the receiver, had caught 12 passes for 198 yards last week. I mean, wow, that's phenomenal.
Let's turn our attention, Mike, to the Northeastern Buckeye Conference. Let's start with Alliance. They're 2-1, a nice comeback victory at Barberton, always a tough place to play. And they go to Minerva, another tough place to play. The Lions are struggling a little bit, but I think this is going to be a better game than what the records might indicate.
Right, I agree with that, Robin. I think outside of when most teams play Louisville, I think the other 7 remaining members every week could be that kind of game this year because you have a lot of teams that are young, some teams that have some injuries, and trying to work through that. And I think that's going to be fun because the games may come down to the last few minutes of every game this year outside of when teams are playing Louisville, which I think is on a tier above everybody else.
Now, speaking of the Leopards, they won handily over Ravenna, which we thought would happen. And they travel to Salem. Now, Salem's 2-1. Kind of deceiving a little bit because the 2 teams they've beaten have not won a game, and one was a Division 7 school in Mineral Ridge. They went to beat East Liverpool last week rather handily and lost to United. So the Quakers, we know that they've got some talent, but do we know how good they are? I think they're going to get really tested this week against the Leopards.
I agree with that. They've got a really nice quarterback in Salem. Weingart's really a good quarterback, and really this is his second year of starting because he started the season early on last year. I think it was around the second or third week he became their starting quarterback. So he's a seasoned quarterback, but with Louisville, Zwick had a big game last week. I think he accounted for 4 touchdowns in that win they had over Ravenna. So, Louisville's a tall task, but, really Salem's got a lot of guys back, including some key skill guys. So that could be an interesting game.
Okay. The other game in the NBC, of course, Marlington is hosting West Branch. Want to make sure that all the scoreboard lights are working at Arlington Duke Stadium because they're sure to be tested on Friday night.
Well, you have 2 teams that are giving up high 30s in points per game. And you've got some exciting offensive players for both teams. So I agree with you, Rob. I think that may come down to the team that has the ball last, and that game could win it.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely an exciting game and a lot of scoring, no doubt about it. The other game in the NBC Friday night is Carrollton and Canton South. Carrollton's 3-0 and Canton South is 0-3. Going back to the Inter-Tri-County, we talked about the Trojans. Western Reserve visits Wellsville. Another long trip. Not an easy way to get there. But Western Reserve should be a favorite. A big win at South Range last week.
Right, yeah. I mean, that was a close one. I think it was 20-14, something like that, Rob. And the thing they have to guard against this week, you're coming off an emotional high, the old adage, you're never the same team 2 weeks in a row, you're either better or worse. So, and they're going on the road. They have to guard against the letdown because they can't have too much of one at Wellsville. Wellsville's a good football team. Yeah. And so they've got to find it again this week. Yeah. I think they will, but I think they've got to play at a decent level again.
Okay, the other games for our area teams, United plays host to Columbiana, and Waterloo is hosting Garrettsville Garfield in the Portage Trail Conference, and Southeast, trying to get their first win of the year, they're hosting Woodridge. Also in the Portage Trail Conference. So a lot of good games. We hope to see you at the stadium. If you see us on the sidelines, please stop by and say hello. For Mike Brown, this is Rob Toder. We'll talk to you next week.